Hi, everyone. I am Rachel Peniston, Manager of Partnership Programs for the NFCC and your host for today's Financial Facts Chat. If you're joining on Facebook or YouTube, thank you. We are glad to have you. If you enjoy today's show, please like, comment, share, subscribe to our page. This all helps to demonstrate your support for nonprofit financial education, and it keeps this channel going. We are going to dive into our financial facts chat in just a moment here, but first I wanted to introduce Bruce McClary, SVP of Communications for the NFCC. How's it going, Bruce?
It's going great. How are you doing, Rachel?
Not bad. I'm looking forward to the holiday and doing some early shopping, trying to get my gifts ready.
Yeah, it seems as though time just moves much faster this time of year, and
Totally.
it's tough to get everything done while there's less and less month to deal with. So, is there anything important on your list that you haven't gotten to that you're starting to worry about, like sending cards or getting packages shipped?
Yeah, I definitely want to make sure I place orders, fairly quickly, but I have to give it some more thought as to what I'm getting for certain people. I'm not a great gift giver, so it takes me a long time to come up with an idea.
Yeah, I find myself in the same boat, but I'm really proud of myself this year because I did get all of the Christmas cards mailed as of yesterday morning. Everything that I needed to send
Oh, great.
for the cards is out. I've just got a few packages that are left that I have to send, but all the shopping was done by the beginning of the month. And now it's just a matter of getting some things shipped out, getting the packages out. Actually, I do have one outstanding item that I need to buy for somebody, but I'm well ahead of where I usually am this time of year, which is good.
Oh, good. Good. Glad to hear it.
And there's no travel to worry about.
Yes, that's true. I am staying put this season.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. It's the definite,
Yeah.
and it's saving too. So it'll be a Zoom Christmas.
Yes, indeed. Well, on that note, let's move right along to our topics. I just wanted to let everyone know that we welcome all personal finance questions, and we always look forward to answering them either through an email reply, an article on our blog, or by answering them here in our live chat. So if you do have any questions that you would like to have answered while you're watching this, please go ahead and enter them in the chat box, and we will get to them as time allows at the end of the program. To get us started, we did get a question. Well, all of our questions are sort of topical to either the pandemic or the holiday season. And our first question has to do with things that people can do to tap into extra savings before the end of the year. And that includes some kinds of use it or lose it sources of cash. So what do you think about that, Bruce?
Yeah, well, I think this year, especially this year, more than any other, people are looking for ways to save. And it's not just holiday related, because we know that there are a lot of people that are struggling right now. And it's not just about how they can affordably buy gifts and celebrate. It's about how they can make ends meet, how they can keep the lights on, how people can put food on the table. And we'll address all of these issues. But I think one of the questions that we get a lot, that I get a lot, almost every day, is about where people can find a little bit of extra cash, where people can save a little bit of extra money before the end of the year, during this especially difficult time of year when budgeting feels strained the most. So there are a number of different ways that you can tap into cash that you may not even realize you have, which is another thing that's kind of interesting about some of these options. So some of these are frequently overlooked. You may have money sitting around that you haven't tapped into. And so these are some good sources. And the first thing I'm going to talk about are the flexible spending accounts that you may have as a benefit in your workplace. These are accounts that you elect to use, and you contribute to these savings accounts, and there are tax-free advantages to putting money into these accounts. So it's essentially tax-free money that you've put into these accounts that's sitting there waiting to be spent. So if you're at your wit's end wondering where you can tap into cash and you're running short, this is one of the first places I would suggest that people look. And one of the things about these accounts that's really interesting is that especially with the HSA, we'll talk about the difference between the HSA and the FSA. It's not tied to a specific employer. So if you switch jobs or you lose your job, you can still have access to the funds that were contributed into the HSA, and you can use those before the end of the year. So first, I'll talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit first about the HSA. The HSA stands for Health Savings Account. And you can kind of think about it as a savings account just for your medical needs. So it's sort of limited in that way. So you can only set up the HSA if you have an insurance plan with a high deductible. The deductible is what comes out of your own pocket for medical bills when your insurance covers the other portion of the medical cost. So this is really like a gap fill. So if you have any medical treatment or anything that you need to take care of before the end of the year, tapping into what's available in your HSA can save you on the out-of-pocket costs. And one of the sad facts about this year is that a lot of people have been putting off elective medical care, checkups with their doctors, dental exams, things like that. These are important things, and if money is the issue, it may be possible that you have enough to cover your out-of-pocket deductible in your HSA already. And you should go ahead and schedule that appointment so insurance can cover the rest, and then it's really not coming directly out of your paycheck, which would really deliver a punch to the gut if you're struggling to make ends meet in the first place. So that's your HSA. Your FSA is a little bit different. It behaves a little bit differently, and that stands for Flexible Spending Account. And money that is contributed to the flexible spending account is also tax-free. So you don't normally have to, you don't have to pay taxes on anything you spend from the flexible spending account, as long as the money is used to pay for acceptable medical expenses. And there's a list that you have access to if you have an FSA that tells you what's allowed and what's not allowed. And in some cases, I have one of these accounts for myself, and you're given a debit card, a special debit card that you can use for those purchases. And you have to report the receipts and prove that what you bought was an acceptable expense on the FSA. But there's a little bit of a wider range of use for the FSA. So when you use your card, when you go out and you spend with that, you can get it on. You can use it for prescription drugs or other medical related items that aren't typically covered under any insurance plan. You can use it. You can use it also for co-payments and deductibles. So it's important to know that if you may have access to those two resources. If you do, you can still use some of that money. And the other thing that I would point out, of course, the big difference here is that HSA funds, the health savings account funds, they have to be used in the same year when the contributions are made. Things don't roll over into the next year. So that truly is use it or lose it. So you may have worked very hard to contribute to your HSA over the year, and your health savings account has all this money in it. You don't use that money before the end of the year on those medical related expenses, doctor visits, et cetera, the co-pays, it's gone. That's money that you basically threw away. So it's there for a reason.
That's for the FSA, right, Bruce?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is for the FSA. Sorry. Thank you.
No worries.
So that is for the FSA. So if you have the debit card, you have these medical expenses, medical related expenses that you need to cover, then you better use that, because once the calendar resets, you're back to square one with your contributions. You can always adjust your contributions each year up to a certain point, which is great. Whatever needs you feel you have throughout the year. And it's always good to keep that in mind. And, especially things that are related to vision care. It really comes in handy there. So you can cover a lot of those costs that can otherwise be pretty expensive and hit your budget pretty hard if you use all of that through your FSA. Just make sure you understand the terms of your FSA, you check your balance, know what's available. You already know how much time is left in the month. So then you just have to make a plan to spend on those things that you need to get. But my gut tells me that a lot of people have really been putting off a lot of these discretionary medical expenses throughout the year because of the shutdowns and because of the focus on some other things. So, you may have more money set aside in your FSA and your HSA than you are aware you have. So this is it's kind of like a hidden source of money that you have access to. So look at the terms and conditions of your HSA and FSA, use that money now and take full advantage of that. And if you don't have an HSA or an FSA and your employer offers those options, and especially for the FSA, if you have a high deductible insurance plan, I certainly encourage you for 2021 to think about enrolling in that and getting that started if open enrollment is still available for you through your employer. But that's really those are two incredible resources that are so often underutilized or forgotten, and you should definitely tap into those. The other thing that I would mention, and this is kind of a shocker here, but there are people who haven't yet who were issued a stimulus check in the first round. You remember when that was? That was eons ago. That was way back in what was that? April, May?
Definitely in the spring, yeah.
Yeah, but there are some people who haven't claimed the stimulus check that was sent to them, the stimulus money. They haven't tapped into the stimulus funds. They may not have received it. It may have gone to the wrong address, and they haven't done anything about it. So there's good news if you're in that boat. There are still some options that you can use to take advantage of that if you did not receive your stimulus funds. One of the advantages is that that's been announced, of course, in the year ahead when you have to file your taxes for 2020, you can actually claim that on your taxes as a credit to your taxes if you did not, in fact, use your stimulus check or receive it. So that's one thing that people should think about, at least in the year ahead. It could give them a break on their taxes. Unfortunately, though, the deadline has come and gone for people who do not normally file income taxes or didn't file in the previous year and were eligible for a stimulus check. There was a late November deadline. I think it was non-filers were given access to a tool to claim their unused stimulus check, but that has expired. It expired on November 21, so the deadline has come and gone. But that's for non-filers. So anybody who didn't file taxes in 2018 or 2019 could have used that tool. So that's unfortunate that has expired. But if you did file taxes in the previous year and you were eligible to receive stimulus and you did not receive the stimulus check or the stimulus funds, there is a Get My Payment tool, and I would encourage people to go to the IRS website, irs.gov, and use that tool to, if you haven't already, which is it's mind-boggling, but there are people who haven't followed some of these steps and haven't used their stimulus funds. So that's one thing there. And then the other thing that I want to mention is if you're a credit card holder and you have reward points cards, it's always a good idea to check before the end of the year to see which points are about to expire. If you have any unused points that are about to expire, different credit cards have different terms on when points expire and what the terms of usage are. But you should be familiar with those. And if you haven't checked your point status, do it. I checked mine last week just as a matter of habit to see where things stand, because using your points can also help, especially if you're in a bind with your budget and you're having difficulty making ends meet. There are things that you can use your points for. You can even use your points to pay for utility bills in some cases. So it's really important to know how you can use your credit card reward points, what you can use them for, what qualifies, and if there are any blackout dates that affect some of the usage. But there's always the question, and this question came up recently. In fact, it came up yesterday. Somebody was asking me if it's a good idea to cash in your earned points. If you don't already have a card that gives you cash back rewards, there are ways that you can still convert your earned points into cash. And somebody asked, is that a good idea if you're up against the wall and you need some quick source of cash? Obviously, it depends. It's a judgment call that you have to make yourself. But the general rule of thumb is that the exchange rate on points for cash is rarely, if ever, in your favor. And it's not going to be a dollar for dollar proposition on points for dollars in those cases. So you're going to trade in a lot of points that have a lot of value if used in other ways, and you're going to get very little back for it in terms of cash. So my advice would be, obviously look at the terms, see what you're going to get back, see what the exchange rate is, and make a decision for yourself. Is this worth it? Because if you're trying, again, as I mentioned earlier, if you're trying to pay utility bills, if you're trying to cover essential costs, you may be able to exchange those points for goods and services at a much higher point to cash value than if you converted those points into cash and just pocketed that for whatever need that you have. So it's kind of the same rule that I ascribe to using your credit card like an ATM card. There's always a high premium that you pay for the convenience. And when you get cash back from your credit card at an ATM, you're going to pay a much higher interest rate that reduces the value of that transaction based on the cash you're putting in your pocket. Same thing for exchanging points, credit card reward points, and converting them into cash if you don't already have a cashback reward card. So just be very cautious about that. But obviously, it's just a matter of how desperate you are. And in the end, is it a better proposition than borrowing? If you're in a desperate situation, you don't have the income, you can't affordably repay a loan, well, then the answer is probably yes. But you're just not going to get a lot for your for the points that you worked very hard to earn, and that's the other thing too. So it's not the most favorable exchange. Just be very, very careful there when you're thinking about what to do with your unused points that may expire soon.
Thanks for that, Bruce. That's some good advice there. How about other year-end financial checklist items like reviewing your automated billing, checking your credit report, creating a budget plan for the next year? Could you talk about that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things to suggest to people this time of year is to go back and revisit what bills you have automatically deducted and automatically paid. If you have any automated bill paying set up, sometimes when you set it up, it's easy to forget that it even exists. It's operating behind the scenes. And if you don't budget on a regular basis, if you don't review your budget and adjust your budget as you should be doing, then these things can fade into the background. And you may not even remember that you're paying these things, especially if everything sort of evens out with your budget and you're not really focused on what you're spending and what you're savings. So be very careful here. Even if you are budgeting, it's a good idea to go back, look at the things that are automatically deducted from your savings or checking, the bills that are automatically paid, make sure everything's okay. And also do this to review any services that might be redundant, that you're paying more than you should for. There's also an opportunity to save money in the year ahead. So if there's a service that you're being automatically billed for that you can cut next year, this is an opportunity to do that. If there's a service that you're being automatically billed for where you can reduce the cost, then look at more affordable subscription options or payment plans and then adjust it accordingly. So you're saving money in the year ahead. But don't ever let this get to the point where you're not revisiting this at least once a year so you can then see where the savings might be available and also see what's going out. There's a very scary story that I'm not going to use any real names here, but this happened to somebody I know. They had a car that had a satellite radio in it, and the satellite radio had a subscription service. The subscription service, that was like $10 or $12 a month or whatever those are. Well, they just sold the car during the summer. they forgot they forgot about the subscription on the satellite radio because it was just automatically being billed and they weren't focused on it. So they got to last month when they finally realized that they were still paying for satellite radio on a radio that was in a car they didn't even own anymore. So for all these months, they've been essentially throwing money away without even realizing it. So the cautionary tale is you definitely want to know what's coming out being deducted for these automatic bill expenses. And if you don't check it regularly, as I would recommend, more frequently than once a year, at least do it before the end of the year to make sure that you're saving as much as you can, that what's coming out of your checking or savings for these bills is appropriate, and move into the next year with a confidence knowing that you've fine-tuned that expense category as much as possible. But that goes back to the saying, what is it? You don't know what you don't know. And what you don't know can hurt you, as was in the case of the satellite radio in the car that was sold. Another thing, you want to check your credit report. You want to check it regularly. But at the end of the year, it's always a good idea to spot check your credit report, look for errors, look for things that need adjusting, and make sure that what you see is factual and accurate. And if it's not accurate, make sure you report inaccuracies to the credit bureaus so that they can investigate and make those corrections, because sometimes those inaccurate items on your credit report can bring your credit score down. And you don't want to go into the new year with a credit score that is less than what you deserve. So this is your opportunity to make sure you're getting what you deserve with your credit report. Check all three. You can go to annualcreditreport.com, which is the website where you can get your free credit reports. And then last but not least, this is very important, and it should have been the first thing I mentioned, but sit down now and focus on your budget for the year ahead. A lot of people don't like to budget. It's not fun. I never have fun doing it. I'll admit that. I advise people to do it all the time, but it's not something that's fun. But it's necessary, because the alternative to budgeting is less fun when you have surprises like the satellite radio bill that you didn't know about, or other things, and you're not prepared for unexpected expenses. So at least sit down and start thinking about the year ahead. Think about your goals, your financial goals, how you're going to reach them. Think about the priorities that you have. If there's a bill you want to power pay and get rid of next year, put together a plan to do that, and at least go into the year with some kind of an idea of what things are going to be like for you financially when you start the year, and where you'd like things to be when you finish the year, and then make a commitment to yourself to revisit that plan throughout the year. So that's those are at least a few things there. But please, the first thing I mentioned, do that. Go back and look at your automated billing, because those sneakers can really hurt. Imagine that satellite radio situation if those people hadn't realized it, for another year or two. That's hundreds and hundreds of dollars that they could have just, lit on fire, essentially.
That is a situation you definitely want to avoid if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that actually, your tip about budgeting brings us to our next question, which is specifically about budgeting with an eye on rising grocery prices as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, everybody, at least every time that I've gone to the grocery store, I've been frustrated, because there are items that I typically get where I see the price has gone up, and to me, on the spot, it just seems inexplicable. Like, why am I paying this much more for peaches, for example, or why am I paying this much more for paper towels or meat or fish? It's interesting because the pandemic has been a factor in some of this. Some of this has not been affected by the pandemic. There was actually some kind of an issue with peaches this year that caused crops to be damaged, and because of that, it limited the supply of peaches, and now you're finding that either shelves are empty, which my sister reported to me just this week, or that when there are peaches available, they're priced up. Same thing with COVID impacted products like paper towels, other paper goods, the disinfectant wipes that we used to see all the time, we don't see much anymore. Those prices have ebbed and flowed with supply based on COVID. So I think this question raises a really good point. What can we as consumers do when we go to the grocery store to maximize the savings that we get, or at least offset some of the price increases so it doesn't hit the budget as hard? And I would turn to you, like, what do you think we could do as shoppers to offset that to offset those increases when they happen, and just save money in general?
Well, that is a great question. And there is this kind of brings us to our new fun component of the show, which we're introducing this week. As you guys know, there's a lot of personal finance advice out there, and it's kind of hard to know where to start in a way. And it's hard to know what might actually work for you. And so we decided that really there's only one way to find out what works. So Bruce and I are going to undertake a challenge. We're going to test out some of this popular financial advice for you and report back. And your budgeting question, I thought that might be a good place to start. To answer your question, Bruce, one of the things you can do to minimize some of the cost you're spending on groceries or other everyday items is clipping coupons, which sounds kind of old-fashioned now, but it is a tried and true method of saving money.
You're not going to make me go out and find a newspaper, are you?
No, I think what we should do for our challenge is starting today and for the next week, we will try to apply a coupon to everything that we purchase, which means we're going to have to try and search for one. If we can't find it, we'll go ahead and buy what we need to buy. But I think it would be kind of fun to see, if we put in a little bit of extra work, how many things are there that have coupons that we didn't know about, whether in person or online. And if we keep track of what we are able to save, how much does that add up to over the course of a week?
That sounds like a great challenge. I'm up for that challenge. This is an area where I have to admit, this is like being in the confessional here. I always advise people to maximize the use of coupons, but I don't always do such a good job myself. I use those store discount cards, which have the barcode on them, and you can go to the grocery store and scan it. You can take advantage of some of the better deals out there, but you're not. That shouldn't be where people start. That shouldn't be where people stop. That should be where people start when it comes to savings. And I fall short when it comes to using other coupons in addition to the store generated savings from those customer rewards programs. So this is a good opportunity for me to get back into a good habit. And, I'm up for the challenge, but that's at the grocery store. So it'll be also interesting on some of the other items I have to purchase. The good news is this week, I don't have a lot of other non-grocery purchase items except for that one gift I have to get. So I'll see how much I can save on that gift. But I think couponing, and the good thing is too, technology enables the savings in this area too, because there are a number of coupon apps. I'm going to rely a little bit on I have a sister who, the same one who told me about the peaches, who is a avid coupon user, and I turn to her as an expert here. So I might ask her where some of those apps are and what I might be able to use. But the bottom line is, hopefully I'll have a good report on savings, and I'll be able to compare. We can compare some of the things that we saved on. And I'll even commit to talking about the items where I fell short. It can be a little bit of a walk of shame for me in terms of what items I may have spent too much to buy. But the timing of this is good because I have my usual, I go grocery shopping a couple of times a month. And this is my big trip this weekend.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Yeah, it's typically where I spend more than $100 on groceries, clearly. So this is there might be some real savings here. Buy a lot of the bigger bulk items that I put in the freezer, things like that. So
yeah.
Scouring the landscape for coupons here over the next couple of days.
Yes. I'm really excited for this because I would say I use coupons, some of the time, as in when I remember. And sometimes I save them and I think, oh, I'll use that. And I completely forget it at home when I go to the store. So I think having this challenge and having you as my accountability buddy is going to try, I'll try to remember those kind of things and actually keep track of what we're able to save. So I think that'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think to make this a little bit competitive, we should probably compare the percentage savings overall. So if you can try to track that and see what overall percentage savings you were able to generate, that'll give us a little bit of a benchmark, and we can be somewhat competitive there to see who comes out ahead. So I'm going to try my best to to save the most, but we'll see how it works.
All right, sounds good. Well, happy shopping and good luck, Bruce.
Good luck to you too.
Thank you. I think with that, we can probably wrap up now. I just wanted to thank everybody out there for joining us today. We hope that this has made you a little bit better informed and helps you to make some wise financial decisions. If you watch this after the live stream, don't forget to like, comment, and share. If you have questions for us, please let us know. Or if you guys have some financial advice that you have heard and you think we should try it out in our next challenge, please let us know. We will definitely consider it. We want to plan some more of these to test drive them. So thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you again soon with an update on how our couponing goes.
Good luck, Rachel. Take care.
Good luck. Take care. Bye.